Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing Red Rising from Pierce Brown, and I'd originally planned on reading Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, but it was like 700 something pages and I wanted something a little bit shorter. This is like 380, so I could start my Halloween stuff, and it ended up pretty much perfectly. I almost had like a few hours left when I got done with this one at work, so I started reading some Catch 22. I'm still reading them on the side, and this book was a little bit surprising because I've seen a lot of people, like fantasy booktubers, talk about it. So I thought it was going to be fantasy, but it's actually science fiction. And it is takes place on Mars. This main character is named Darrow, and it's kind of like a mix between Hunger Games and Divergent, Allegiant, all those kind of books. The characters, like, they start out from like 15 and they end up being like 18 at the end or something like that, so it's all about like teenagers, so it seems like it would be a young adult, but it's very violent and there's a lot of rape, so I wouldn't think it would be young adult, but I don't know. It's brutal, and like it starts out, they have everybody like split into different colors, and it's like, that seems cringy to me because it sounds like Divergent and all that stuff, and it's like, it doesn't seem like in the future, if we're trying to get rid of racism like today, that it would end up like giving everybody their own colors and like splitting them up between their own colors in the future. It just seems like backwards logic, but so it kind of seems like a juvenile way to create the world. I don't know. Just seeing, yeah. And then also the prose was a little bit, like, it's all written from the main character's point of view. You never get to go inside the mind of any of the other main characters to see what they're thinking, which I guess is because there's a lot of betrayal and treachery and lying and backstabbing and stuff, so you probably wouldn't want to do that, but it's just kind of like, the main character's like, there's points where it just like speeds up. It's like a montage. He's like saying this happens and this happens, this happens, and it stops, and it's like, and it slows down, and there's like some dialogue and some stuff, and then some main stuff happens again. And he's like, woof, 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 and then like a bunch of more stuff happens. It's very fast paced. I heard a lot of people say that. I heard a lot of people say that this is not even like the good book of the series. Like, there's 5 of them or something. Like, the second book is just way better. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And if you don't want any spoilers, I'll probably stop here, but I'm going to tell you. I mean, I'm talking about how brutal this book is. It starts out, he's like a slave on Mars, and he's digging for helium-3 because that's what they need to terraform the planet. Him and his family are like these miners, and he's like what you call a hell diver of Lycos, because he has like super fast reflexes with his fingers and his mind, and he controls this giant drill that has like finger drills, and it like drills into the rocks, and he has to like think really fast and like do math in his head because of all the angles and stuff of it, and like he's like, they test him on all this stuff later, and he's like super good at it. So like he's like way more skilled than a normal person his age would be, because he's like used to driving, and it's also like really hot, and it stinks, and it's just like it pretty much makes him into like a super soldier from his experiences, pretty much. And then he has this wife. He gets married at like 15 years old. It's like they wanted him to get married at 13, but his wife wanted to wait until he was 15 or something like that. It's weird. And then they rebel against the Golds. The Golds are like the top of the society, and they run everything, and they're super rich and lazy and arrogant. They're all like Mr. Peanut and the Monopoly Man. You'd expect them to have top hats and monocles, and they all call each other Good Man. Like, I don't know if it's spelled like one word, like Goodman, but I don't know if it means like good man. How are you, good man? It's like they talk like weird high society monocle people, but super assholes. I mean, it makes you want to hate the Golds. And then they rebel against him by dancing. And like, his family is like, they love singing and dancing, and it kind of gives you like a Metro 2033 vibe. Like poor slaves living in the tunnels, and they like to sing and dance and play a dither, like a little wooden guitar. So everybody loves his wife. His wife's beautiful and stuff, and she rebels, and she sings the song that cannot be sung. And his father had danced the dance that cannot be danced, the forbidden dance, and then they like hang them. And if you hang somebody, if there's not enough gravity for the just hanging them to kill them, so the family has to go and like grab their ankles and pull them down and snap their neck. That's fucking brutal. And then you got to leave them there. If you get caught cutting down your family, you got to leave them hanging there until they turn to like a skeleton. If you get caught cutting it down, then you get hanged, and then it starts a whole cycle of just killing. So that was pretty fucked up. He did that to his wife. He had to like break his own wife's neck and stuff. So then he went and cut her down because he didn't give a fuck. And I think, and then and they thought they'd killed him, and like this terrorist organization recruits him, and then they make him into a goat, and they like do like a whole montage of like carving his skin and hair and stuff, and like making his bones stronger, and like pretty much do super futuristic plastic surgery on him, and they teach him like how to talk like the golds and act like the golds, and it gets pretty crazy. And then the real story starts, and it becomes like you go through this test. Like apparently when you're his age, I don't know if it's all the golds or some of the golds, they get put into this thing to start their training to see who's going to be like people flying the fleets of starships, because the terrorist organization wants him to be an imperator, or like one of these guys that has fleets of starships, because then they can do the most damage to the golds, and like we're trying to change the society, and Earth's already kind of been taken over and stuff. And when he becomes a gold, he realizes that Mars has not been, it's not being terraformed. It has been terraformed for years, and it's already like everything's great. There's trees, there's grass, there's no bubbles anymore. It's like animals running around. Like the golds are up there just having a great time. They got these gravity boots. They're flying around like Superman and shit. Like the utopian society up there, and like, but everybody's like split into those colors still. Like everybody knows all this except for the low reds, the people that are actually like slaves, just so they can get that helium-3 mined. There's upper reds that know what's going on, but they can't interact with the other ones, and it's all like a big secret. So there's pinks. The pink people are like prostitutes, and they're just like they're like masters at sucking dick. And there's like these obsidian ones. They're like the soldier class, so they're like big strong thug types. And then you got like your scientists, engineers, like the blues and the green. And what else was it? There's not any white or yellows, I don't think. But then you get up to the golds, and then there's like what they call iron gold, which is like super tough golds. So they have to like put them through these tests to see who's like the best of the best, cream of the crop of the golds. So there's this thing called the passage, right? I think that's what it's called. They take 100 people and they split them up, and it's like two of people have to like kill each other. Like whoever survives gets to go through. So half of them get killed. So they put him with this little younger guy that he's kind of like the brother. Not kind of. He is the brother of the guy that he had made friends with when he first got there. So he's kind of like keeping that a secret from this guy Cassius. Like you don't even know they killed his brother. And then they end up all in these groups that are like based on moons, like Ceres, Apollo, Pollux, and Jupiter. What is Pollux one? Pollux is a guy. Pluto. Yeah. All these different groups. There's a map at the front too, by the way. And it's like Game of Thrones or Hunger Games. They all have to steal each other's flags, basically, or eliminate them, so that there's only one remaining at the end. And they didn't really tell them the rules, but they kind of say it's a bad idea to kill people. You can't really. They want to like keep. This is the cream of the crop here, right? There's 50 of them. Wait. There's 50 of them. That can't be. Okay, wait. No, I'm thinking about it. Just don't make no sense. There was 50 of them that ended up in House Mars. There was a bunch of other ones that wasn't in their original 100 group, I think, because they ended up being like armies of like 300 and something people at the end. So it can't be that. Okay. Yeah, so there's this whole bunch of stuff happens. Like all these different battles go on. They tell you're not supposed to kill anybody, but if you kill them like incidentally or an accident, there's these medbots, they come in and try to save you. But then they pretty much ignore that rule and start killing each other like crazy. And like this one guy, he's like the scariest motherfucker out there. They call him the Jackal. And he, apparently he got caught into a collapsed tunnel with a bunch of guys, and he ended up eating them, cannibalizing his own team and like taking their bones and putting it in the hair of his soldiers, and you hear their hair clinking with the bones and shit. It's like fucked up. And this guy, they find out later, he's like the son of the governor that got that guy's wife hung, so he definitely wants to kill him. And then he ends up being betrayed by Cassius from his own team at one point. Like, he becomes like this legendary figure because he's so fucking good at everything. And you have to like also figure out how to deploy justice if somebody fucks up. Like, do you want to kill them, or do you just want to like isolate them? Or he ends up like at one point he gives a guy like 25 lashes, but then he like takes more lashes himself from this big ass guy named Pax. He's like this giant guy. He says, I'm gonna have this motherfucker whip me on the back just so that you see that I'm taking the same punishment you're taking. Everybody like totally respected him for that shit. And then he's got this one guy, Severus, not Severus Snape, I think it's Severus. They call him the Goblin. He's like this really cool character that he just most of the stuff, the killing and the conquering and stuff that Darrow does. But they actually call him like the Reaper a lot. Darrow, the Reaper, Primus once it becomes like the leader. They call him Primus Reaper or whatever. And then he doesn't do a lot of this stuff himself. It's kind of like Ender's Game, and like he just figures out the tactics, and he's like, he has Goblin hide somewhere, and he's like, take this flag. And he has this group of people that like killed all these wolves, and they wear their pelts and shit. They just come up, just start slicing people up, and taking towers, and jumping up out of the fucking. They'll crawl through tunnels of shit, and they'll climb ladders and take parapets. Just like, Goblin, take him. He'll just go do it because he becomes super loyal to him. It's so badass. And then, like, they all have these things called proctors, which is like the adult teachers that are kind of over each house. And they find out one of them is working for the governor. He's cheating, and he's helping the Jackal. He's helping the Jackal win. They're giving him like all these extra weapons and stuff and medicine. And I think they give him like catapults to somebody at one point. Like, there's all this cheating going on. And these proctors, they have like futuristic body armor that like repels things, and they have invisibility cloaks, and they got the grav boots, and they got these like razors. It's like a sword. It's a whip that you hit a button, it flips out really straight. You cut people with it, and then they got like this pulse fist thing that you can like shoot out lasers and stuff. It's like all kinds of futuristic weaponry. And he ends up finding out Goblin's dad is his proctor, and he like catches him with his shield down, and he punches him in the face, elbows him, and sticks him in the corner, and he steals his stuff. So he has like all these like grav boots and shit. And then the Goblin ends up finding out, and he's like, yeah, fuck my old man. He didn't like him anyway. He's like, he's so fucking loyal to this guy. And then like, there's this girl that they took over House Minerva, and she escaped on this horse, and he met her earlier. This blonde girl. It's kind of like reminds him of his wife. Her name's Mustang, and he ends up like starting this whole love affair with her. Like they're all like wearing wolf skins and like sleeping in the snow and stuff. And then there was like an attempted rape at one point. That's the guy he like did the whip lashings for. He ends up being like one of his most loyal followers and stuff at the end. But yeah, then they end up taking over the whole fucking place, and they end up like killing a few proctors and like taking over Mount Olympus, which was where they all watched the games take place from, and it's fucking dope. And then that Jackal guy, he finds out the Mustang, his girlfriend that he's been sleeping with and stuff, is his twin brother. So he had just told her, like, Minerva, or what was her name, Mustang, go take his standard. He's like, yes sir. She leaves with her little army with all this fucking gear of like, they just took a bunch of proctors, so they have like all these like laser swords and weapons and shit, and she's like leaves with this army, and the guy comes up to him and is like, you know, the Jackal is her twin brother. And he's like, what? We just gave her like all these weapons and shit? So like now they're worried about they gotta fight the twins and the whole army and shit. And then she comes back and she's like, you thought I was gonna like join him, didn't you? And she like brings her his head or whatever. She'd killed her own brother. Fucking dope. Super spoiler there at the end, but how crazy is that? That's just the first book that everybody says is shit, and the book 2 gets way better. Like, holy crap. But it was a really fast-paced, really quick read. Very violent, very brutal. There's a lot of fucking, like, rape and stuff that probably didn't need to be in there. Turns a lot of people off. But, yeah, it's a pretty crazy book. It kind of takes place over, like, years though, because there's something about the scale of the world. It wasn't really very descriptive because everything would fly by so fast. It's like it started out kind of like saying there's like these big maps on the walls of each castle that tells you like where it's kind of like a game. You have like a fog of war, so you can't see where other people's castles are. So once you send out your scouts and you kind of discover areas, it reveals more of the map. But then they would go through and like sabotage other people's maps, and they would like break them, and then they'd burn all their crops and piss on their shit in their water and all kinds of like crazy shit like that, just to like sabotage people. So it get really fucked up. They were killing animals, and there's like a cybernetic bear, enhanced bear. And there was some crazy shit in this book. I highly recommend this though. But now I'm going to start into my Halloween books, and I'm going to read Carrie Mora next. Still waiting on my other books to come in for the book haul. I've got a couple of them, but should be getting some today, I hope.